Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. I never expected my father's watch to change everything. But sitting in my apartment, staring at the USB drive that had fallen from its weathered band, I realized that sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest secrets. The call about Dad's death came on a Tuesday morning. I was in the middle of a client meeting when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Usually I'd ignore it, but something made me excuse myself and step into the hallway. "Is this Lena Harper?" a somber voice asked. "Yes, speaking." "This is Dr. Agent Clara Reyes from Mercy General Hospital. I'm very sorry to inform you that your father, Victor Harper, passed away an hour ago from cardiac arrest." The world tilted sideways. Dad was only 58. He'd been healthy, active, running his tech company with the same energy he'd had 20 years ago. Cardiac arrest? It didn't make sense. "There must be some mistake," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I just spoke to him last week." "I'm afraid there's no mistake, Miss Bennett. Your stepmother, Isabel Monroe, is here handling the arrangements." Isabel Monroe. Of course she was there. My stepmother of 5 years, who'd somehow managed to drive a wedge between Dad and me, deeper than I thought possible. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, already heading for the elevator. "Miss Bennett, wait." Dr. Agent Clara Reyes started to say something else, but I'd already hung up. The drive to Mercy General was a blur. Memories of Dad flooded my mind, teaching me to code when I was 12, celebrating when I landed my first software development job, his proud smile at my college graduation. We'd been so close once, until Isabel Monroe. I arrived at the hospital, parked haphazardly, and rushed to the front desk. Before I could speak, a familiar voice cut through the air like a knife. "Emma, you shouldn't have come." Isabel. Monroe stood there in an impeccable black dress. Not a hair out of place, her makeup perfect despite the situation. No signs of grief, no tear tracks on her cheeks, just that same cold, calculating look she'd always given me. "He's my father," I said, stepping forward. "Of course I came." "Was," she corrected, her red lips curling into a slight smirk. "Was your father. And he made his feelings about you very clear in the end." My hands clenched into fists. "What are you talking about?" Isabel Monroe pulled an envelope from her designer handbag. "Your father left specific instructions. He didn't want you at his funeral. In fact, he didn't want you involved in any of the arrangements." She held out the envelope, and with trembling hands I took it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with Dad's company letterhead. "I, Victor Harper, being of sound mind, declare that my daughter, Emma Bennett, is not to attend my funeral or be involved in any arrangements following my death. All decisions are to be made by my wife, Isabel Monroe Bennett." The signature at the bottom looked like Dad's, but something felt off. I'd seen his signature thousands of times, on my school permission slips, on birthday cards, on the checks he'd written to help me start my own software company 2 years ago. "This isn't real," I said, looking up at Isabel Monroe. She shrugged, taking the paper back. "Believe what you want, but if you show up at the funeral, I'll have security remove you. That's what James wanted." "I want to see him," I demanded. "One last time." "He's already been taken to the funeral home," Isabel Monroe said, checking her watch as if this conversation was boring her. "And you're not allowed there either. Go home, Emma. You've caused him enough pain." "Pain? What pain? Dad and I were fine. Until I what?" Isabel Monroe stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Until I showed him what his precious daughter really was. An ungrateful child who only wanted his money. Who was trying to steal his company? That's not true, my voice cracked. I never, security, Isabel Monroe called out. And 2 guards appeared almost instantly. Please escort Miss Bennett out. She's not authorized to be here. As the guards approached, I saw the triumph in Isabel Monroe's eyes. She won, just like she'd been winning for the past 5 years, slowly taking Dad away from me, poisoning his mind against me. And now, she'd even taken away my chance to say goodbye. I let the guards lead me out, my mind racing. Something wasn't right. Dad and I had spoken just last week. He called me about a potential security flaw in the company's new software. We talked for an hour, just like old times. He'd laughed at my jokes, asked about my new project. There had been no anger, no disappointment. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, trying to make sense of it all. That's when I remembered Dad's watch, the old Omega he'd worn every day since I was a child. He promised to give it to me one day, saying it held more value than I knew. I started the car, but instead of heading home, I drove to Dad's office. As one of the founders of Bennett Tech Solutions, I still had access to the building, even though I'd started my own company 2 years ago. Isabel Monroe might control the funeral, but she couldn't stop me from collecting Dad's personal effects from his office. The security guard at the front desk, Jack Dalton, had known me since I was a teenager. "Emma, I'm so sorry about your father," he said, genuine sadness in his eyes. "Thanks, Jack Dalton. I just need to get some things from his office." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Take all the time you need." Dad's corner office was exactly as I remembered. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Walls lined with tech awards and family photos. I noticed with a pang that Isabel Monroe had already removed the photos of me. I went straight to his desk, opening drawers looking for the watch. It wasn't there. I checked the small safe behind his degrees, empty. The cabinet where he kept spare clothes. Nothing. Frustrated, I slumped in his chair, spinning slowly. That's when I noticed something odd about one of the remaining photos on his desk. It was recent. Taken at last year's company Christmas party. Dad and Isabel Monroe stood together, his arm around her waist. But his watch, the watch he never took off, was missing. I leaned closer, studying the photo. In every other picture I'd ever seen, Dad wore that watch. It had been his father's, and his father's before that. A family heirloom that meant everything to him. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabel Monroe. "Security called. Get out of his office now or I'll have you arrested for trespassing." I had 5 minutes, maybe less. I frantically searched the room again, this time looking for any sign of where he might have hidden something important. Dad had always been paranoid about security. It's why our company had been so successful. He would have had a backup plan. Behind his desk was an old photo of us at my college graduation. I was wearing his watch in the picture. He'd let me wear it for good luck during my final exams. That's when it hit me. I rushed to my old office down the hall, now used for storage. In the back corner was a filing cabinet I'd used years ago. The bottom drawer had a false bottom. Dad had helped me install it when I was working on my first major project. My hands shook as I pulled out the drawer. There, wrapped in an old t-shirt, was Dad's watch. I heard voices in the hallway. Security was coming. Quickly, I shoved the watch in my bag and walked out, nodding casually to the guards as they passed. Back home, I examined the watch carefully. It looked ordinary enough. Expensive, but nothing unusual. I turned it over in my hands, remembering how Dad would fidget with the band when he was deep in thought. The band, something wasn't right about it. The leather was worn, but there was a slight bulge near the clasp. I pressed it gently and heard a tiny click. A small USB drive fell into my palm. My heart pounding, I plugged it into my laptop. A single video file appeared, dated just 2 weeks ago. With trembling fingers, I clicked play. Dad's face filled my screen. He looked tired, worried, but determined. Emma, if you're watching this, something's happened to me. And knowing Isabel Monroe, she's probably trying to keep you away. I paused the video, tears blurring my vision. Dad had known. He'd known something was wrong, and he'd left me this message. Taking a deep breath, I pressed play again, ready to learn the truth about what had really happened to my father. Dad's face on my screen looked exhausted, his usual confident smile replaced by worry lines I'd never noticed before. I turned up the volume, not wanting to miss a word. Emma, if you're watching this, something's happened to me. And knowing Isabel Monroe, she's probably trying to keep you away. First, I need you to know, I never stopped loving you, never stopped being proud of you. Everything that's happened these past few years, it wasn't what you thought. I paused the video, wiping tears from my cheeks. Even just hearing him say that lifted a weight I'd been carrying for years. Taking a deep breath, I pressed play again. Play again. Play. I've discovered something terrible, Emma. The company, our company, is being used for money laundering. Massive amounts. Hundreds of millions flowing through shell corporations and fake accounts. At first, I thought it was external hackers. But he ran a hand through his gray hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. It's Isabel Monroe. She and her brother, Ethan Monroe, have been using Bennett Tech to clean money for their overseas clients. Since before our marriage, my hands flew to my mouth. Isabel Monroe's brother, Ethan Monroe, was our chief financial officer. She'd insisted on his appointment just months after the wedding. When I confronted Isabel Monroe, Dad's voice cracked. She made it clear what would happen if I went public. Not to me. She threatened you, Emma. Said her associates would make sure you had an accident. That's why I had to push you away. Make it seem like I didn't trust you anymore. I thought, if there was distance between us, you'd be safer. The pieces started falling into place. The sudden coldness, the missed calls, the way he'd stopped consulting me on company decisions. He'd been protecting me the whole time. I spent the last 3 months gathering evidence. It's all here, encrypted on this drive. The account, numbers, the transfers, the communications, everything needed to bring them down. I was planning to take it to the FBI next week, but he glanced over his shoulder, paranoid. I don't think I have that long. They're watching me too closely. My blood ran cold. Dad's cardiac arrest. Had it really been natural? If something happens to me, take this to Special Agent Sarah, Agent Clara Reyes at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Her contact information is in the encrypted files. The password is Immiger, the day you wrote your first line of code. He smiled briefly at the memory. But be careful, sweetheart. Isabel Monroe has people everywhere. Don't trust anyone. At the company, not even... The video cut off abruptly. For several minutes, I sat in stunned silence, my mind racing. Money laundering, threats, murder. It seemed impossible, like something out of a movie, but it explained everything. Isabel Monroe's sudden appearance in Dad's life, her brother's swift rise to power in the company, the mysterious new international clients. My laptop chimed. A new email from Isabel Monroe. Final warning, stay away from the funeral tomorrow. Security has your photo. Don't embarrass yourself. My hands clenched into fists. She thought she'd won. Thought she could just kill my father and take everything he built. Well, she was wrong. I opened the encrypted files on the drive, entering the password. Dozens of documents appeared. Financial records, emails, photographs. Dad had been thorough. One folder was labeled proof of threats. Inside were recorded phone conversations between Isabel Monroe and someone speaking Russian, discussing what would happen if Victor Harper didn't play nice. My hands shaking, I pulled up the contact information for Agent Clara Reyes. But before I could reach for my phone, a sharp knock at my door made me freeze. "Miss Bennett, this is Detective Wilson, NYPD. We need to speak with you about your father's death." I quickly pulled the USB drive from my laptop, slipping it into my pocket. Through the peephole, I saw two men in suits showing badges. But Dad's warning rang in my ears. Isabel Monroe has people everywhere. Don't trust anyone. "Just a minute," I called out, buying time. I snapped a photo of their badges through the peephole, then sent it to Jack Dalton, the security guard from Dad's building. He'd been a cop for 20 years before retiring. He'd know if they were real. My phone buzzed almost immediately. "Those badge numbers don't exist. Get out." My heart pounding, I grabbed my go bag from under the bed. Something Dad had insisted I always keep packed for emergencies. Now I knew why. There was a crash as the men started breaking down my door. I ran to my bedroom window and out onto the fire escape, grateful I'd chosen an apartment with a back exit. As I climbed down, I heard them entering my apartment above. "She's gone down the fire escape!" one shouted. I dropped the last few feet into the alley, adrenaline masking the pain in my ankles. My car was out front. Too risky. Instead, I ran toward the subway station 2 blocks away, weaving through the evening crowd. Looking back, I saw the fake detectives emerging from my building, scanning the street. I ducked into the subway station just as they turned my way. My phone buzzed again. "Jack Dalton. My police contacts say no detectives were sent to your apartment. Watch your back, kid. Your father was worried about something big before he died." I shot him a quick thanks, then turned off my phone. They could probably track it. On the subway platform, I bought a burner phone from a vending machine with cash, then boarded a train heading downtown. I needed somewhere safe. To think. To plan my next move. A hotel was too risky. Isabel Monroe had the resources to check them all. I couldn't go to my friends. I wouldn't put them in danger. Then I remembered Dad's lake house. The small cabin upstate, where we used to spend summers coding and fishing. Isabel Monroe had always hated it, calling it a worthless shack. As far as I knew, she didn't even know its location. But first, I needed to make a copy of the USB drive. If something happened to me, the truth about Dad's death had to come out. An hour later, I sat in a 24-hour internet cafe, using a computer to create encrypted copies of all the files. I sent one to a secure email account I created, and another to a cloud storage service under a fake name. As I worked, a breaking news alert popped up on the cafe's TV. Tech CEO Victor Harper's death ruled natural causes. Memorial service scheduled for tomorrow. The camera cut to Isabel Monroe, standing outside Bennett Tech headquarters in a black designer dress, dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief. "James was everything to me," she said, her voice breaking perfectly. "We just want to lay him to rest with dignity, without any disruptions from certain parties who might want to dishonor his memory." I gritted my teeth, knowing exactly who she meant by certain parties, but her performance was convincing. The grieving widow, the dignified businesswoman taking on her husband's legacy. No one would suspect she was behind one of the biggest money laundering operations in the city. Almost no one. I pulled out the burner phone and dialed the number Dad had left for Agent Clara Reyes. It rang twice before a professional female voice answered. "This is Agent Clara Reyes. My name is Lena Harper. I'm Victor Harper's daughter. We need to talk. About my father's death and about $40 million in laundered money." There was a pause. "Can you prove who you are?" "I can prove that. And a lot more. But we need to meet. Somewhere safe. My father's murderers just tried to break into my apartment." Another pause. There's a diner called Joe's on 4th Street. 1 hour, come alone, and make sure you're not followed. I ended the call, gathered my things, and left the cafe. As I stepped onto the street, a black SUV with tinted windows cruised by slowly. I ducked into a nearby store, pretending to browse until it passed. They were looking for me, but they didn't know what I knew, didn't realize I had everything needed to bring them down. Isabel Monroe thought she could erase me from Dad's life, steal his company, and get away with murder. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Joe's diner looked exactly like the kind of place where spies would meet in old movies. Dim lighting, worn leather booths, and enough background noise to mask private conversations. I arrived 20 minutes early, taking a booth with a clear view of both exits. The waitress had just set down my untouched coffee when a woman in her 40s with short, gray hair and a cheap pantsuit slid into the seat across from me. "You look like James," Agent Clara Reyes said quietly. "Study my face, same eyes." I pulled out the USB drive, but kept it under the table. "Before I give you anything, I need assurances. Protection." She nodded. "If what you have is real, we can." The diner's door chimed. 2 men in dark suits entered. The same fake detectives from my apartment. My heart stopped. Martin had noticed my expression and glanced back. "Friends of yours?" "Isabel Monroe's people," I whispered. "How did they go out through the kitchen? Now?" Agent Clara Reyes's hand slipped inside her jacket. "I'll handle this." I slid out of the booth just as one of the men spotted me. "There she is!" Everything happened at once. Agent Clara Reyes stood, drawing her weapon. "FBI, freeze!" The men pulled guns of their own. Customers screamed. I ran for the kitchen as shots rang out behind me. The kitchen staff stood frozen, staring at me. "FBI," I shouted, pointing back toward the dining room. "Call 911. I burst out the back door into the alley. A black SUV screeched to a stop at the end, blocking my path. Ethan Monroe, Isabel Monroe's brother, stepped out, pointing a gun at me. "Give me the drive, Emma," he called out. "Nobody needs to get hurt." I backed away. Like Dad didn't get hurt? His face hardened. "Your father made his choice. Don't make the same mistake." More gunshots from inside the diner. I used the distraction to turn and run the other way. A bullet whizzed past my head, pinging off a dumpster. I rounded the corner onto a busy street, pushing through the crowd. My only chance was to get lost in the subway system. I ran down the nearest station steps, jumping the turnstile. Behind me, I heard Ethan Monroe shouting into his phone. 2 trains were at the platform, one uptown, one downtown. I jumped into the downtown train just as the doors were closing. Through the window, I saw Ethan Monroe and his men reaching the platform. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely pull out the burner phone. I dialed Agent Clara Reyes's number, praying she was okay. "Martin asked," she answered, sounding out of breath. "Oh, thank God. Are you all right?" "I'm fine. 1 perp down, 1 in custody." "Where are you?" "On the subway, heading downtown." Ethan Monroe, Isabel Monroe's brother, was waiting in the alley. "Listen carefully," Martin said. "We're compromised. Someone in my office tipped them off about the meeting. Go somewhere safe. I'll contact you through a secure channel within 6 hours." "How?" "Check your father's emails from last March. He contacted our office then. My secure details are in the correspondence." The call ended. I looked around the subway car, paranoid that any of the other passengers could be working for Isabel Monroe. At the next stop, I switched to an uptown train, then switched again. Finally confident I wasn't being followed, I headed to the one place I knew was safe, Dad's lake house. But first, I needed supplies. At a small electronics store, I bought a cheap laptop with cash. At a drugstore, I stocked up on basics. Everything a person might need to disappear for a few days. The lake house was a 2-hour drive upstate. I took a series of taxi rides and a bus to reach the nearest town, then hiked the last 3 miles through the woods. The sun was setting by the time I reached the small cabin. Everything was exactly as I remembered. The old porch swing, the stack of firewood, the small dock stretching into the lake. Dad and I had spent countless weekends here, working on code, talking about life. He taught me everything I knew about programming on that porch. The hidden key was still under the loose board. Inside, a layer of dust covered everything, but otherwise, the cabin was untouched. Isabel Monroe really didn't know about this place. I set up the new laptop and accessed Dad's old email account. Sure enough, buried in folders from March, was an email chain with Agent Clara Reyes. She'd been investigating Isabel Monroe's brother even then, and Dad had reached out with suspicions. At the bottom of one email was a sequence of numbers, GPS coordinates. Plotting them on a map revealed a location in Central Park. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Dead drop at the coordinates. 3:00 a.m. Bring everything. I had 4 hours. Time to prepare. Using the laptop, I dug deeper into the files from the USB drive. Dad hadn't just collected evidence of the money laundering. He created a kill switch, a program designed to expose every transaction, every shell company, every dirty deal. One button would send it all to law enforcement agencies worldwide, but he coded it to require 2 keys to activate, his own and one other. As I studied the code, my eyes filled with tears. The second key was coded to my specific programming style, using markers and structures only I would think to use. Dad had made me his backup plan all along. A sound outside made me freeze. Footsteps on the porch. A shadow passed by the window. They found me. The footsteps on the porch grew closer. I quietly closed the laptop, gripping the USB drive in my pocket. The back door offered an escape route, but I'd never make it across open ground without being seen. Then I heard a familiar voice. "Emma? Kid, you in there?" Jack Dalton. I moved cautiously to the window. Sure enough, our old security guard stood on the porch, alone. "Your dad told me about this place," he said softly. "Said if anything ever happened to him, you might come here." I opened the door slowly, still cautious. "Prove you're really Jack Dalton." He smiled sadly. "Your 10th birthday. You crashed the company servers trying to code a birthday countdown program. Your dad helped you fix it before anyone noticed." I relaxed slightly. "How did you find me?" "Your father left me instructions, GPS coordinates, and a message to deliver when the time was right." He pulled out an envelope. "He said you'd need this for the kill switch to work." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note with a string of code, Dad's encryption key. "Why didn't you bring this sooner?" "Your father's instructions were specific. Wait until you found the USB and made it here." Jack Dalton's expression darkened. "Isabel Monroe's brother is dead. Shootout with the FBI. She's trying to transfer everything offshore and run." I checked my phone. 2:30 a.m. "I need to get to Central Park. I'll drive you." The city was eerily quiet as we approached the park. Jack Dalton parked a block away. "Your father was my best friend," he said, handing me a small revolver. "Make it right." The coordinates led to a secluded area near the reservoir. Agent Clara Reyes waited under a tree, alone. "Your father was a good man," she said as I approached. "He was working with us for months, building the case carefully." "Did you know they would kill him?" She shook her head. "We had protection on him, but they got through. I'm sorry." I handed her the USB drive. "Everything's here, but the kill switch needs both encryption keys to activate." "Which you have now," a cold voice said behind us. Isabel Monroe emerged from the shadows, holding a gun. Her perfect composure was gone, replaced by desperate anger. "All this drama," she spat. "James could have just played along. We were making millions. He could have had everything." "He had everything," I said. "A company he built honestly. A daughter he loved. You destroyed that. Type in the keys, now." Agent Clara Reyes moved to draw her weapon, but Isabel Monroe fired first. The agent fell with a cry of pain. "The keys," Isabel Monroe repeated, "or the next shot is fatal." I pulled out my laptop. "I'll need to enter them directly." "Do it." I opened the program, fingers flying over the keyboard. Isabel Monroe moved closer, watching the screen. "You really think you've won?" I asked, keeping her attention on the laptop. "Dad prepared for this, for you. Your father was a fool." The rest was lost as Jack Dalton's revolver pressed against her head. "Drop it," he growled. Isabel Monroe's gun clattered to the ground. Agent Clara Reyes, wounded but alive, pulled herself up and cuffed her. I entered the final keystrokes, both Dad's encryption key and mine. Across the world, servers would be receiving data dumps, exposing the entire operation. "No!" Isabel Monroe screamed as Agent Clara Reyes led her away. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. They'll kill all of you." "Actually," Agent Clara Reyes said, "your associates are being arrested right now." The kill switch didn't just expose the money laundering. It revealed everything. I watched them take Isabel Monroe away, feeling nothing but emptiness. Dad was still gone. Jack Dalton squeezed my shoulder. "He'd be proud of you, kid." The next morning, I stood at Dad's funeral, ignoring the whispers and stares. Isabel Monroe's arrest was all over the news. Bennett tech stock was crashing, but I didn't care. The company could be rebuilt. Honestly, this time. I approached Dad's casket alone, placing his watch inside. "I got your message," I whispered. "I finished what you started. I love you, Dad." Turning away, I saw Agent Clara Reyes waiting at the back of the church. "The DA wants to talk to you," she said, "about taking over the company, cleaning things up." I nodded. Dad had built Bennett Tech to help people, to create something meaningful. Isabel Monroe had corrupted that dream, but she hadn't destroyed it. "One more thing," Martin added, handing me an envelope found in my father's safe. "Has your name on it." Inside was a photo of Dad and me at the lake house taken last summer. On the back he'd written, "Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But you found the truth, just like I knew you would. You were always the smartest person in any room, smarter than me even. Take care of our company, make it something good again. I love you, Dad." I tucked the photo into my pocket, feeling tears mix with a smile. Isabel Monroe had tried to erase me from Dad's life, but she failed. Our connection had been stronger than her lies, stronger even than death. It was time to rebuild. Rebuild.